Hey, good evening, everyone. Oh, there's John. Oh, well, wait a second. Did I let you out of work or did you forget you had to work? No, I got done. All right, awesome. You say you see. Oh, thanks. Okay, now that John's here, we'll call to order the meeting of May 18th, 2026 at 6:30 PM. And we will start with the.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, number 3, audience comments. We have an audience. Do you have any comments, questions, ideas? We'll have another one here. Think of anything. Or just right there. Approval of minutes. Those all had a chance to read the minutes from last week. Last month, sorry. That was a week. There was 2 things that I noticed. One is just a, it's like, typo. Number 1, audience comments. Right at the end, it says we'll give our copy to the JD cookies. Just do it like that. Name.
Okay.
And then what was the other item? Oh, and then one thing. Yeah. I'll see it now, so. It's not very important. I didn't see that about the. It's in review. That'll work for me.
Okay.
You never have to be stuck. So when we vote on approving the minutes, you should just abstain the voting, because you weren't here. Yeah. That's where you're putting it. John, you have anything? Nope. Other than what? Do we have a motion?
Make motion to approve. Which committee?
Actions. 15 for.
Corrections.
Second motion. All those in favor? All right.
I abstain.
Oh, John, you know, you don't have last one?
I was trying to call that.
Okay, no.
It was all 3 hours and 30 minutes now.
Okay, so 2 abstentions.
In the morning.
Okay, moving on, correspondence, do we have any correspondence? I don't see anything. No correspondence. Number 6, unfinished business, I don't believe we have any unfinished. New business. No new business. CEO report, we have a CEO report. Oh, yeah, the CEO report. I think there was one of them,
Oh, I think so, I think it's that. So in the back where. Oh, it was on.
No, it was a lot of documents. Do you have one? I'll just do that. CEO report for May 2026, there are 3 items. The first one, received inquiries regarding home businesses, advised that the town of Sterling zoning regulations now specifically regulate home businesses, provided the principal use of the property remains residential and there is no expansion on the building footprint. Principal use of the property would become non-residential or physical expansion is proposed, applicable permitting will be required. Including possible site approval by the commission. Duly noted. Number 2, received inquiries regarding logging permits. Advised that there are currently no zoning regulation concerning logging activities and timber harvesting is generally considered an as-of-right use. The exception involves activities within or affecting wetland areas. Timber harvesting involving wetland to be referred to Joe Thoreau, Inland Wetlands Agency for permitting review. Wetlands are not involved. Property owners may generally remove trees from their own property without permit. Number 3, approved zoning permits for detached garages. So it must follow the regulation. Give me the site plan. Which we can say. That's it. Other business. Regulation priorities, number 1, discussion of section 4.03. Tim, I had no time to look at this and call you and coordinate, so that's on me.
The,
I don't know
well,
if you did anything.
I looked through it and just to refresh everybody, I did print out the one part that we did have, section 4.03, the one change we had. For just more formatting. And I looked through the rest of it. Or more the 4.04 setbacks and the other sections. And I included non-conformings on as well in this sheet. And quite honestly, the more and more I read it, I'm trying to figure out what it is that we were trying to address specifically. Because I noticed that when it came to nonconformities, I highlighted the sections where it speaks to the fact that although it's kind of vague, it implies that you can still build on a lot that does not have the minimum required area, buildable area, or minimum lot frontage. The only thing from a non-conforming lot that you cannot build on is if it does not have access to a street over a permanent right of way or easement. But what I believe it's implying though is that you still have to meet the setback requirements of at least section D, which is parcels in existence prior to September 4th, 2009, which does have those more lenient side yard and front yard setback requirements. Although the only more lenient front yard one is for a state highway, not for a local road or town road. Except for some reason when you're looking at non-residential uses.
So Jim, why do we deleted the paragraph, the first paragraph and added the second one?
And quite honestly, nothing changed from a dimensional standpoint. It was only to make it a little clearer in understanding.
So if we have a non-conforming lot,
Mhm.
I would assume that a lot of non-conforming lots in the town are less than 200 feet of frontage. When I read that paragraph, it means that if somebody has a house there, then you can't add it to their house or do anything. And I don't think that's what that's not what that's not quite what we want to say.
But when you go to section 5.03,
Right, so and there's other places in it that talks about non-conforming lots and it doesn't say that. So that's kind of what it doesn't.
Right, so
You're gonna confuse me.
right, so I think what is the question
Why
comes
is it
to
there
play
at all?
as to why if when you come to where 5.03 is saying that construction or expansion of a permitted structure or that does not contain the required or minimum lot frontage on a street. But then you also have the question of, this says, but which as of July 23rd, 2004. But yet, when you look at that section and talks about setbacks, it goes by 2009.
Yeah, it's almost like section 5.03 doesn't have the verbiage that it should actually be. It should be something completely different. It should say something like, it should be referring to existing non-conforming lots and have their own regulations,
Is there,
and then state what those regulations are. As opposed to referring to back to these other sections. The title is non-conforming lots. Well, how can a non-conforming lot that's dated prior to zoning regulations or prior to a specific date? How can that be, what's the path to build on that, basically? It should be explaining what the path is to build on a lot that is existing and non-conforming.
so if somebody was subdividing East Long right now, I would assume that all those lots would be conforming.
Right.
And if somebody's, all the lots that were part of subdivisions after whatever this date is, those are all conforming.
Correct.
And if we can assume that a whole bunch of ones before that date are non-conforming. But we don't really care about building on those, and because all we care about are these setbacks. So right now, if I.
Yeah, it's almost like just comply with the setbacks. Yeah.
You just, and you don't care about the buildable triangle,
Right.
but that's kind of thing we use to subdivide. So perhaps maybe if we rework this. That might be clear, because I'll read this first paragraph, I'll say, oh, non-conforming lot, you can't build on it, but then further on it sort of says you can. Doesn't make sense.
Right, I agree with you. I think when you get to when you get to 5.03 non-conforming lots,
Do we even have,
it should just state
do
that
we even have that?
setbacks are what are used to guide the construction within that property.
But we shouldn't,
And the buildable area and the other items are not applicable at that point. So those are used to determine a building lot in a subdivision. This is already, an existing non-conforming lot, it's already passed all that.
yeah, so why do
Right.
we even have like the 250 foot frontage thing on here? Because that has nothing to do with filling on a lot. Has to do with subdividing big piece of land into a lot.
So with any
Do you have
any
a-
zoning regulation for any town, a frontage is always a requirement. There's always a 250 foot, in our case, road frontage. That's one of the dimensional
It's just a
requirements.
dimensional requirement, a minimum lot requirement.
Who comes up with those?
That doesn't, why would you have it there when you have all kinds of lots you can build on that aren't 250 foot frontage? It's just a confusing thing.
Because there are existing lots of record.
There would be a rare lot, right, if it's not 250.
No, it could be a lot that was subdivided before the date we had different rules.
Right, which would be a lot of record. So a lot of record is any lot that existed prior to a change in the regulations or a change or when zoning came about.
And when you did you searched some records or something and came up with a percentage or something like that. It was quite a bit, right?
I think that map up there is actually the map, right?
That's one, I think there might be 4 maps of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Sterling parcel site, less than 0.5 acres, less than 1 acre, less than 2 acres.
right, and that was just for the minimum size, that had nothing to
You
do with
didn't
the
even look at,
lot
you
size.
didn't even look at 250 feet, you didn't look at that buildable triangle.
I,
Look at.
coming up with
So
your
we can
buildable, all I
assume
got.
That's too much data.
We can assume that that number there is even bigger.
Oh, it
Oh,
definitely
if
could be.
anything, yeah.
So I would say that most of the lots in the town are non-conforming lots. Or at least half.
Right, but we're only,
Oh,
we're only talking about available
So why do we have,
undeveloped.
why do we have
lots, which is
stuff in here like the 250 foot frontage? Because that's not a requirement to build on a lot. It really isn't. We don't have the triangle the rectangle listed on here. Now they belong in the subdivision phase, which that's where they are.
I would think going forward, any house would have to have that they're gonna fill in, I don't know if they would have to go to. Yeah, their CBN, yeah,
So you're saying anybody with a non-conforming lot,
we had,
they have to go.
I had to go to the other. See, what is it called? VBA.
You know, you were doing something with setbacks or something, right?
We added on to the house.
Was it,
We couldn't go towards the road.
because of the setback?
They blocked us in, I think it was, what were we, 30 feet from the road?
You needed some other number? But that's because it's a setback. Didn't have anything to do with how wide your lot was.
No,
It didn't say that you had to have 300 foot of square in the middle of it.
I think part of this was a carryover from when you guys transitioned
But maybe
from
we should clean it up. so
the
everybody
ordinance
understands.
to the, because what it's basically saying is that if you have a lot that cannot meet the dimensional requirements, you're still allowed to build a house on it.
If it's an approved building lot already, if it's
Yeah.
a pre-existing.
What
Yeah,
other kind of
it's
lot
really
would
a lot
it
of record.
And it's
So-
going, right, and it's going one step further to say that you can expand a permanent structure.
Right.
What it doesn't say is whether or not you can expand that permanent structure into a setback.
No, it shouldn't. That's
Setback would be-
only more of a legal territory, yeah.
So how about what if we do this? We have, like, if we left the first frontage, that first part, the 4.03 or something, we just separate it out with, maybe we have a non-conforming paragraph with a little chart like this. and a conforming paragraph, which would be the same thing we already have.
Typically, what you'll see is frontage will be listed as the required.
You could put a frontage line in the
Non-conforming will be
non-conformity,
its own section.
but you can explain what that is. This is really confusing. It really is super confusing. Because in one part of the one part of the page, it says you can't do it, and then 2 pages later, it says you can under certain circumstances. Why don't we just spell it out for everything?
The two sections need to be separated. There needs to be a frontage that requires 250 feet of frontage. And then if we want to have a description for a flag lot, which is essentially what the rest of this is. Because frontage doesn't even need to be a section. It can just be a dimensional line item, just like these, right? Frontage requirement, front yard setback, rear and side yard setbacks. It can just be a simple,
Yeah, but why, if you have a lot, there is no frontage requirement. If it's already a lot, there is, it's some point,
it's a standard component of every zoning regulation I've ever seen in my life for every town.
okay,
So I'm very hesitant to remove anything.
Yeah, if you had like a long lot that's 20, 30 feet wide, it would kind of be weird to put a house in there,
but you
without getting all the setbacks.
you couldn't put a septic system on it,
Yeah.
and you couldn't meet any setback. So that's irrelevant. So you're gonna let someone, if somebody can meet setbacks in like the village area, right? They can like add porches and things like that. They're definitely not 250, well. This just
Right,
seems like
that would be in the
very,
non-conforming section. That would be in the existing non-conforming section.
so
There
perhaps
would
we
be
need to,
non-conforming structures,
we
and
need to put
non-conforming
some
lots.
text in
That
there.
would be in that section, and anything referring to non-conforming should not be in the front part. Frontage should only be
I agree.
the requirement for the front lot.
It should be part of this, the setbacks section.
Yes, any reference to existing or non-conforming should not be in section 4.
Okay, so
Remove that. And I think.
say this again. I think what he is, I think just taking that paragraph and moving down there, it's still.
Well, you could almost remove this paragraph and just have the section below it where it says frontage requirement or land use and then associated frontage requirement.
Okay, so you would agree that if it's a non-conforming lot, it has no frontage requirement?
If it's a
Non-conforming lot,
if it's a lot of record,
and we could call it that, if it's non-conforming, it has no frontage. requirement.
right,
Is that true?
Yeah.
If it's
Just left out.
if it's a non-conforming lot of record
Lot of record.
and it has, if it's residential, it has a 50-foot setback from the street and a 75-foot setback from the highway.
no, you don't list separate regulations. You just say it's existing non-conforming.
But here's what would make it easier to understand. You have what a regular lot is and you list everything it needs, and a non-conforming lot and you list everything that that is. There, that would make it perfectly clear to someone reading this, what's required in each case.
The existing or new?
Thinking
The existing lots of record or new ones?
any lots that you can build on. So, and the kind of lots you can build on are, what do we call them, lots of record? Right. So, and we have non-conforming lots of record and conforming lots of record. I mean, there's probably other ways to write it, but when we, the way this is structured right now, it's. Yes, agree.
As any new lots would have the 250 foot.
Yeah, they're already
Required.
taken care of, right? And they have the buildable triangle, they have everything they need. So that's not an issue, you can get all the setbacks, because all that was figured into the one that was subdivided.
Should only talk about things in the future, not things that have been already built on.
What do you mean?
You know, these are-
Everything. It's an approved building lot because it was approved at a certain point in time. So we have text in here that tries to take care of that, but it's confusing.
What's the value of knowing something that's already built on?
Cause people add up to them. They build a porch, they build a garage, they build a shed. They do things to it. Change it as they live there.
Yes, and typically what happens is that you still have to meet dimensional requirements. So.
Like
if-
setback.
if- if- if
You
your
know,
front-
you have to go for a variance.
If your front yard setback is 50 feet and the front of your house is 50 feet from the property line, and you wanna add a 10-foot porch. Technically, you're building within the setback and that's CBA territory. That's where you go for a variance. So because your lot is existing non-conforming doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want, because it means you still have to comply with the established dimensional requirements.
What's the setback for a structure now with an adjacent property line?
25.
25 outside yard.
So if your structure is 25 feet, then your minimum, basically your minimum frontage is gonna be 75 feet
Yeah, well,
for a property. If you get 25 on both sides plus the width of your structure,
unless it goes out on weird thing, but I was thinking the same.
basically, you're always gonna have.
25 on each side and 50 in front.
So anything that's gonna add it on
Would have to meet those dimensional requirements.
dimensions, so.
And if you're a couple
Build
feet off,
200-foot addition on your house, the requirement is gonna make you not be able to make it 200 feet because of the setback.
Right.
and if you still wanted to do that, then you would go to the.
Then you go to CPA.
Ask for that.
Typically, you would, if the property that wants to add on, also add on to their house or do whatever type of improvement,
They need to go get a.
and they don't have 250 feet of frontage. Then they would have to go to, if they meet all other setback and dimensional requirements, but they don't have a 250-foot wide box, still going to ZBA. And get asking for relief from the 250-foot setback, 250-foot
Yeah,
front.
but we have text in here that talks about non-conforming lots and that against that.
All right, so let's be clear, we're not talking about,
Right here, no buildings may be constructed on a non-conforming lot that decided frontage, all right, so
we're not talking about rewriting the regulations so that no one has to go to ZBA. That's not what we're doing.
no.
You're still going to ZBA. If you don't have 250-foot frontage, you're going to ZBA. If you don't have,
I don't think that's true.
it's,
That's the.
Then why do you have a non-conforming lot thing in here at all then?
That's,
Cause zoning was made, we have after a lot of these houses were then.
Well, if you have to go to zoning board of appeals on every lot that's non-conforming to build anything, that just doesn't make sense. And that's not what happens now. I don't, we're issuing, I see garages and things going up for here where I live and all these lots are non-conforming lots because they're like 20, 30 years old and I don't see notices in the CBA minutes that say these people went there to get CBA because there wasn't 250 foot of frontage.
So when they had, side requirements and.
If it's not, if they already have a and this is just a question, if they already have a non-conforming lot. And the building that they're putting on it doesn't infringe on the setbacks. Would that require you to go to ZBA?
I don't think so.
No,
And don't.
as long as it falls right in the zone.
so this would be the time to write that exemption and make that exemption clear. That frontage doesn't apply on a non-conforming lot. But all other dimensional setbacks
It might say that somewhere in here.
do apply.
And would also would not. That. We don't have that in here, the buildable triangle thing, do we? No. Buildable.
No, and that's only for subdivision.
Minimum buildable area is included in that essentially 5.03 is doing exactly that. It's exempting any the minimum area, minimum buildable area, or minimum lot frontage. For a non-conforming lot. But I believe it still requires it to meet,
Yeah, it says you still need.
you still need to meet setbacks.
Right, but then it says, shall not prevent the construction or expansion of a permanent structure, permitted use, relative zone. So it's just confusing. If it's confusing to me, it's confusing to lots of people.
Well, I think you can get rid of all this about relevant zoning district because you only have one zoning district.
Yeah, I think you could say something like these regulations shall not prevent the construction or expansion of a permitted structure or the establishment of a permitted use on a non-conforming lot that does not contain the required minimum area, minimum buildable area, or minimum lot frontage on its street. That part to me should remain, and that's simple.
Could we put a heading in somewhere in the first part of this, you call it, conforming lots or something like that?
No, everything in here is mandating the conforming criteria. So everything is conforming.
That doesn't-
Except for this section, which is labeled non-conforming, everything else is conforming. The entire zoning board is conforming, except for just that one section that's not.
Because the fact that the whole paragraph leads off with except as provided in this section.
Where those words?
That type is always confusing.
I know.
Because it's like, we're already in the section, so.
Right, that paragraph, section 5.03
That's legal.
leads
Yeah.
with the fact that they say. Except as provided in this section, which is 5.03.
Well, yeah, why don't we just delete that?
Yeah, we can just.
Yeah, you can get rid of that. But I think that the whole point of it is that. Yes, none of these things apply, but the lot still has to have. Permanent access. Through a right of way or an easement to a street. Which is that last sentence. Even though you do not have.
Doesn't have the road front.
Right, even though you do not have frontage, you have to have some access to a public street.
Yeah, so I would keep that part too.
Frontage, it just doesn't define.
Doesn't say 250, it says frontage.
Right.
It's not going to say if it's.
Right, it's not gonna give it's not gonna give you a frontage amount, it could be
Permanent right away. Okay,
it could be an easement,
Yeah.
it could be a right of way, it could be a cart path that you have. Rights to pass over, something, you just have to have access to a street. Legal access in order. To be able to build.
Yeah, I would keep that.
Right.
So the only part I would remove would be the first part, except as provided in this section 5.03, I would get rid of that. And just start with these regulations and continue to the point where it says permitted use. Get rid of in the relevant zoning district, so it says for the establishment of a permitted use on a non-conforming lot. Take out those few words in the middle, in the relevant zoning district. The full one zoning district, so. Would need the extra verbiage.
What's the definition of a permitted structure?
A structure that has been built legally with a building permit. Not like someone parked a trailer on a property and now they want to put a porch addition on it and it was never permitted originally. That's what it's trying to avoid, right, Jim?
Yeah, but we don't put that in this part. We don't say if you can do it, whenever any dwelling is established or expanded, it doesn't say.
Maybe you should.
Maybe it should,
Yeah.
or maybe you don't need that.
I like that term, actually.
Do we have definitions in here, don't we?
In your regulations, yeah.
You want
So we can, I don't have that with me. I gave her one.
what term you
Either the terms permitted structure and permitted use.
You have a
They are not.
structure. But you do not have
So
permitted
I think
anything.
if we leave those in this paragraph, they should both be in the definitions.
Okay, so a definition for. That would be section 2.01. 2.01.
Although under structure, it says anything constructed or erected that either requires a building permit or has an impervious surface. Every building is also a structure,
Right,
but not every structure is a building.
but this regulation doesn't refer to structure, it refers to permitted structure. Well, I guess I see what you're going, once I said it out loud, I see what you're going. It's referring to the term structure. And a structure is,
But not every structure is a building.
Is it dwelling,
a
yeah.
structure is anything constructed or erected that either requires a building permit or has an impervious surface.
Because a building,
It's also a structure, but not a structure.
because a building is any structure that has a roof and is supported on all sides by walls.
But I still think the term permanent structure, and permanent use should be defined in our definition.
That's fine.
So my thought is, when this is all done, who this is most important, who is the residents of the town? It finds what they can do with their houses and their lots, and how they build houses, and how who people will live, build houses. And in my opinion, it should be written very clearly so everyone can understand.
I agree. So Tom, do you like this better? We remove this first
Yeah.
part, remove that part.
Yep.
And I think that makes that much cleaner.
And then if we define those two things, I think
Okay.
I think that would go a long ways to making it clear.
Do you see any issues with adding definitions for permitted use and permitted structure?
No,
We can come up with, what.
Yeah.
So that doesn't, contradict, either structure or. I don't see anything else that would contradict, but that doesn't mean we don't do our due diligence to make sure that. There's anything else that comes up because of that. Okay. So then we can work on 4.03.
And we have a, in definitions, we have what a non-conforming lot is.
Section 5.01, is that part of the play on this? Waiting.
So we need one of those too.
We have definition for non-conforming.
So if I wasn't on planning and zoning, I wouldn't have no clue what a non-conforming lot is. I would just read this first part and say, hey, I can't do anything to my house. I can't add a porch, I can't put new stairs on it, I can't do anything, I can't put an overhang over my porch when I go on the front door.
Yeah, and of course, that's not the case. There's always a path to do.
But you have to
So
understand what
this is to try and make that, we need to make that path clearer, more clear. Okay, there's almost a down here, Tim.
In section 5.01.
Yeah.
Have anything to do with trying to accomplish.
So now, so you go to exclusively the building structure for lot. Yeah, it should, we could probably take that text, I would still leave it here, but stick that text in the definition section as well.
Yeah, you're right, John. There's no,
Like, perfect.
explaining this, yeah.
Oh, it says, yeah, maybe it's not perfect.
Or you read the more, the words again.
Yeah, it has, it's correct, but again, it's a little, so I might,
Does it need any date reference at all? Does that even matter? I don't know if the date reference matters. It's a non-conforming lot as of May 18th, 2026.
The only thing, I don't think it has to be repeated, let's put it that way.
When was zoning put in? Why are they going back to this date here? 2004?
That is, the date, I believe, the ordinance was established.
Oh, recent.
Prior to
The land use ordinance was
Yes.
established July 23rd, 2004. 5 years after that would have been when zoning was established, which was 2009.
Right.
So I don't know if technically you should be going by the zoning date and not the ordinance date. But because it
Yeah.
does, there are portions of the regulations that do reference the 2009 date as opposed to the 2004 date. If you go and look at the first page or the first or second page, under D, it says parcels in existence prior to September 4th, 2009, which is when zoning regs were adopted.
I think the dates are confusing. I don't think they even matter. I think the only thing that matters is that it doesn't conform today. And then how do you deal with that lot? You can't just write it off. Say it's
Right, they matter in the sense that it's when zoning was, when in determining whether it's a lot of record,
using the date, well,
you have to go by the date.
maybe that's in the definition. We removed it from these sections.
Right, and that's, I mean, it
Put
can
in the
be,
definition.
So basically, anything before 2004 was non-conforming. I'm assuming.
right, anything that doesn't meet the current dimensional requirements is gonna be,
Why they use
for the
that.
most part, yeah. Because the adopted date was September 10th, 2009. Although technically, that's the adopted date, that's not the effective date. The effective date is September 14th, 2009. So it shouldn't even be the
Yeah.
adopted, it should be when it's effective.
Yeah, yeah, so maybe we take that effective date, put that in the definition. For,
But that ordinance was written in 2004, there wasn't an update to that. To that ordinance?
The ordinance, I don't think the ordinance was ever updated, to my knowledge.
You would have to use that. That date, right?
So we would need to have a definition for lot of record using the effective zoning ordinance date, zoning ordinance date. And then remove that from these sections and then refer to lot of record.
That would probably be easier.
So in section 5.03, that would be removing the date, so but where it says, but which as of July 23rd, 2004. And continuously thereafter. We can pretty much get rid of that section and just say lot of record. And then go back to definitions, lot of record. With whichever date makes the most sense, whether it's the land use ordinance or the actual zoning ordinance. And determine which one of those dates is legally responsible. Because I'm not sure which one.
If somebody wanted to merge the lot back with the taxation, we still go back to the old one.
No, when it's merged, yes.
So
we start over
somebody had
now.
a non-forming law as of July 23rd, 2004. And we were paying taxes on it as a building lot. They wanted to merge it back together,
Bigger lot.
make it a bigger lot, we'll go with tax lease.
It's on
They
the
can't
on
always split it back to the original if it was originally non-forming. I think
No.
that's what that
No.
was happening now.
Oh,
So, because it says continuously thereafter, owned separately from the.
Right, but it will just refer to lot of record as opposed to date of the regulation. So just say, if it's a lot, if it's a lot,
That's some forms, so we're not saying, well, I wouldn't recommend it, no.
well, it would simply say, non-conforming lot that does not contain the required minimum building area, minimum building area, lot time on a street.
does anybody ever did that?
But is a lot of record and continuously thereafter was owned separately. So we can do that, and then you can hit J out.
Well, the only issue with taking the date out is that technically a lot of record is one of two things. A lot of record is either a lot that existed prior to the adoption of
So a couple of people.
subdivision regulations.
It would be the ordinance.
That is interesting.
A lot of record, in the definition of a lot of record, it talks about a lot which on July 23rd
Or
was both.
A lot that has gone through subdivision. Technically, a lot that has gone through subdivision has been approved by the planning commission. Is also a lot of record.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Right.
So the adding those words would be a good.
Or you were just. The definition of lot of record.
Oh, wait,
includes July.
We do have a lot of record, a lot.
You have a definition, yeah.
On July 23rd, 2004 was both listed, yeah, okay, so it's. That. Yeah, so we can just refer to a lot of record, and not have to re-listing the date every time. Because there's 2 or 3 different dates in here, which I think is contradictory.
But then if it falls under zoning, it's not called a lot of record.
What's that?
Falls under zoning.
If it fell under zoning from 2000 forward, it doesn't meet that definition of lot of record. Because it specifically says July 23rd.
I don't think it would matter if that's. It's a lot of record, a lot of record.
Right, technically by statute, I mean, by a lot of record. Is. You see, we just went through this in Eastford. Eastford doesn't have zoning. Right, so for them, a lot of record is before subdivision regulations.
Just a dude.
Or adopted, because those are the only regulations they have. For you guys, I think they're going with. because I don't know if your subdivision regulations prior to zoning had any minimum lot sizes or dimensional requirements. Prior to your 5 year, you may not have had any kind of dimensional requirements in your subdivision regulations prior to having the ordinance. Like a minimum lot size or anything. So it wouldn't have mattered. I'm not sure, I haven't gone back and looked that far back, but. I don't.
Right.
I have subdivision.
Oh, I suppose you didn't have it.
No, I don't have those old land use ordinance. I don't have a copy of that. I have subdivision, I have. With these. Zoning regulations.
When was subdivisions created? Subdivisions should have on the front,
April 14th, 1988,
Oh,
adopted effective May 4th, 1980. Subdivision regulations.
Did we have something before that?
probably not.
well, you adopted that land use ordinance in 1987, and then you guys got rid of that, I think, or something. There was,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
because there was a
Nobody likes Zoom, right?
lawsuit.
Well, it was a fight for a long time, yeah.
There was this lawsuit when you adopted it again that went to the Supreme Court. Because someone basically argued that you had already adopted the 5 year land use ordinance in that, so that you couldn't do it again. But the way the statute reads, it basically says that any town that is not currently, because it's only good for 5 years. And then it either goes away or you adopt zoning, so. You had it for a brief amount of time, it went away for, I don't know, 20-something years.
Yeah, I want that.
And, but because you currently at that time didn't have it, you were still eligible to adopt it again, so. But I do think you can use that, the way that it's worded, I think you could use just a lot of record, that definition.
Yeah. Yeah, because the date shows up in 5.03, in 5.01. In 4.04. That's a lot of references to one.
That, the only thing I will confirm is what the actual date should be.
Yeah. Right, so there's a little bit of cleanup. We haven't addressed 4.03 yet. Yeah, frontage, where we started, that's where we started, now we're circling back. So. Jim, the frontage. Actually, what's proposed would work.
Say again?
Everything that has the strike through. It's gone. Just use this piece and then.
So then we'll,
And then
we'd have to be a,
No,
just,
so
we do the non-conforming thing, we just have to make sure that you're with it.
Right, and then, right, because then we get the non-conforming and it eliminates. It eliminates 4.03 as a requirement for a non-conforming lot. Of record.
So what makes a lot non-conforming other than minimum area, minimum building area, or minimum lot frontage? Or anything else?
I think those are all of
Those are
your,
all the things that would make something non-conforming.
as far as a lot.
What about that?
As far as the lot, for a non-conforming lot, so. Yeah, up above it, we talk about non-conforming structures. Right, that would be a structure that doesn't comply with the thing. So we should kind of explain that. Cause we did down here. So it's kind of clear, it's a minimum area, minimum building area, and minimum lot frontage. Non-conforming lot. Up above, we say, what you can do with non-conforming buildings, you don't really explain what they are. So the only reason I would know what these were is to ask questions from me, and I think I was told a non-conforming structure is something that is built, the setbacks aren't correct for it. Well, that could be, is there any other thing? One of the problems. Oh, there was a height. Well, it's dimensional requirement.
Yeah, Article 4, which is what all, anything with 4.0 and beyond is all just dimensional requirements.
Oh, I don't have that.
Right, I didn't copy the whole. I only started with where things changed, 4.03. So under Article 4, it starts with 4.01, which is minimum lot size. And then 4.02, which is minimum buildable area.
Yeah, the whole thing is dimensional.
Frontage.
And then it goes to frontage and then setbacks. But to make a lot non-conforming, it would mainly be those three items. The lot size. Buildable area. Probably and frontage.
Hold on a minute. Why don't we match the words up in section 503, the non-conforming lot size? If we call it required minimum area, minimum buildable area, why don't we kind of use the same words that we use in the headings above? So instead of minimum area, maybe we would call it minimum lot size, so it matches. Then instead of, or the next one is called minimum buildable area, but that's something the same word we use up here. Yeah, so that one matches. If the minimum area doesn't, then you call that one minimum lot size. I don't see a problem with that. Then we just call it, we said minimum lot frontage on the street, maybe we could just call it minimum frontage, just everything matches up. Yeah, you could say just minimum lot frontage and remove the on a street part, because the sentence below that, the one that's highlighted, refers to there being street access.
Yeah.
So I think that's covered there. So we could remove. So it could be minimum. Instead of minimum area, it would be minimum lot size, minimum lot size. Yeah, minimum buildable area or minimum lot frontage and remove the on a street. Cause on a street is described below that. So now where that would be a problem is we have, when we have lot sizes, we have two types of lots. We have a single family and a two family. So it makes sense that we have these words in here for a single family, but if it applies to a two family, You have no, you have any size.
That's not a, that's a use, that's not, doesn't have to do with the lot. So that would be a non-conforming use, the single family is a use, not a. Not a,
What about,
that has nothing to do with the lot.
what about in 401? We
Double the lot size for two families.
Yeah.
The family or more.
So just two families, don't do them. Yeah, we don't have one.
You don't think we cause ourselves a problem by wording it that way in the non-conforming lot? Which part? Well, here, up here, we have minimum lot size, we have residential.
Or structure.
No, because you're just referring to the lot, you're not referring to the use. In 5.03, we're just referring to the lot, not the use on the lot.
Applicable. Applicable.
Oh,
Because you're just saying, it doesn't. The lot does not contain the required minimum lot size. Well, if you're doing a two-family, your minimum lot size is 4 acres. If you're doing a single family and you don't meet your minimum lot size, and it's 2 acres.
but because of this thing, if I have a 1.5 acre lot, that's a lot of record, I can build a house on it.
You can build something on it. If you want to do a two-family, you're gonna have a tough time, because you're not even close to the
But
lot
these
size, and then you're gonna.
EDA would not be big enough.
have to meet setbacks.
But the way this is written, we are not prevented that.
If you're building, if you're gonna get, it's gonna happen regardless, because if your lot size is less than an acre. And you're trying to get 2 houses on it. You're gonna run out of setback space,
So the setback.
or health department requirements for septic and well setbacks and offsets.
So I,
You're gonna, it's not gonna work, regardless.
when we're out done with our track changes and stuff like that,
Yeah,
I have this suggestion that we, run this through the Visco or whatever, and then look at it. So time or whatever, or someone like that.
Alright, or handles.
point made though.
Because we're changing things the way you think. We might mess something up too. So I think. Putting certain words in the non-conforming lot thing. Makes it okay to put a two-family house on something less than 4 acres. It's like an unintended consequence.
If you have the lot size, you can put a two-family.
You have 4 acres. But he's saying if it was non-conforming, why can't you do it now?
John's making the example, if you have a 1 acre lot and you want to put a two-family on it. You fall under non-conforming, so.
As long as they own it for
It's
20
allowed,
years, right?
No, for how long?
It doesn't matter, if it's an existing non-conforming lot, and
Yeah,
it's only an acre, or it's 1.9 acres. Well, I wanna put a two-family on it, the applicant.
Cause
Yeah.
This regulation wouldn't prevent that. We wouldn't say, well, you can't even put a single family on, never mind a two-family, but it's not conforming, therefore lot size doesn't matter. So,
because these, I think this is written around, our subdivision stuff. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at making lots and we're really careful what a single family house needs. But then if this is an afterthought, we kind of say, okay, you need 4 acres for two family. Do we have things that we need 500 feet for two families or anything like that?
it's the same. 250 feet.
We could have 250 feet of frontage and just have a really deep lot, you can put 2 houses on it.
Well, it could be 250 feet at the road, isn't it? Go back in.
I would be single building. Built like a two.
Correct.
I would think,
And it could have one septic.
I would think it's pretty clear, you have to have 4 acres to build a two-family house. If you're gonna build, it's gonna be new, so your property doesn't match.
Couldn't we just something in and say that non-conforming lots will not apply to two-family houses?
Well, that's where you would go, I think. That's where you would have to say. But is that not overly restrictive? Cause that's, so far, all we talked about doing is cleaning up the language to be more clear. That would be a change to the regulation.
Yeah, we're only talking non-conforming.
And it's just a suggestion, it's, it's a valid point to make, I'm not saying you shouldn't accept it. No, I agree, it's a valid, absolutely valid point, and if you want to, if the goal would be to not have it two-family or any use other than single-family residence on a non-conforming lot, that would have to be written, and that would be a new regulation at some point. My goal in this process wasn't to write any new regulation, it was only to clean up the language, so we have to decide what we want to do. If that's what we want to do, then that's a road we can go down.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been an issue before because somebody would have read this and it says 2-family, 4 acres. Then when they read this part, they wouldn't know what it's talking about, so you would assume you can't go 4 acres.
Well, for a new lot,
So we're cleaning this up so people will understand what it says if they want to apply this to live.
yeah, but this regulation is still applicable, just to a new lot.
Oh, maybe it's just something we could think about. We're still working on it, so.
Mainly what this applies to with the 4 acres is somebody who has an existing lot that's probably 2 acres or less than 4,
If you do.
and they want to build a second residence on it.
You would have to go to TBA.
Right, this would say, well, you have less than 4 acres, therefore no. And then you can go.
If you got 3.7,
That's good.
And then we'll go to
So it's
ZBA.
not for us to put on literature as well, I would have heard it.
Yeah. But like John, what John's saying, what John is basically saying is. What prevents. Somebody with a new lot that's less than 4 acres from doing it to family, and someone who has a slightly older lot.
That's what I was trying to.
Who can now do what this person
Trying to
couldn't
say
do,
more.
and why do we make that fair? Yeah.
well, it doesn't say you have to own that property continuously since the ordinance.
No, it just has to be a lot of record that's continuously in that state. It could be bought and sold, it just couldn't be subdivided and then recombined.
Well, then they'd have to just follow the rule. You just can't build a 2-family.
Like, so it's added, or it's crazy, where would be a new development or a new project and an old project, and then what happens?
Yeah, I don't know, then it gets really muddy, and it gets very muddy.
Do we have little subdivisions that are just approved and just?
Probably. I don't, well, it could.
Or it could be a lot that somebody
It could
owns.
just be one subdivided lot, yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Or it could be an existing home and somebody wants to put a second one there.
Yeah, that gets muddy, I'm not sure how to tackle that.
No.
Well, I mean, we would have to write a regulation, and I wasn't intending on,
Right.
writing new regulation, I was.
Isn't that
This
everywhere?
was meant to-
What he's describing, isn't that true right now, even without any change?
It is,
It's true now, yeah.
because nobody would understand.
Right.
So I don't think it's. I don't think it's difficult to understand if you're doing a new lot with 4 acres, or, existing lot, and you want to add the second family to the single family.
No, I get that you could use those there. It really is.
How many lots of record do we have? Do we even know? We have these,
Isn't every
are these,
lot in town a lot of record?
Wait, don't you?
So if you, technically, you bought a new lot on town record. You still have.
Oh, you mean,
I don't
ordinance
know,
things on?
it doesn't matter if it's a lot on record.
So there could be lots that have been subdivided out of that's or that aren't.
It didn't.
That's
It's
what I
just
wanted
one
to
that
know.
has to go by the old dates.
Maybe that's good for you, but no. That means there's 1,700 lots of other.
Or which ones have buildings on them.
Oh, that's
Don't.
yeah.
But even if you do, I don't know how to spell them. By what I guess, by which means you were in. By.
I guess that's my better question is, if you're forming.
Less than 2 acres.
Well, it could be less than 2 acres, it could be something that was approved with the wrong, with the less frontage.
Yeah,
Than most houses.
setbacks, all that.
I think you just allow 2 families on 2 acres.
Right? 2 families and 2.
That's my first instinct. It's kind of a loophole, but like, how many people are looking to
Well, when we
take
make that,
advantage of that loophole?
when we make it easier to understand.
I don't think we're gonna make flooded with families because of us.
But you, like you said, you still have to put a septic system. What?
Right, yeah, you have
Health
to have-
department regulations and the fact that you guys. I think you guys have a regulation that says you can't have any well. The well radius of 75 feet has to remain on the lot,
It's gotta be on your things.
on your land, which is not a common thing. In most towns, and it can't. So,
Isn't that a health department thing?
no, health department does not require the 75-foot radius to remain on your property.
Right, they require the 75-foot radius. but
It can't be within the septic system, 25 feet from a building, 75 feet from another. Well, I believe, or actually, no, it could
Well
be
to
on
well,
another
like-
well,
Well to well, but not well to septic.
right. Septic can't be within 75,
Right. Your septic-
or any other drainage, like a
Septic.
drain or anything like that. But, I mean, realistically, a 2-family and a single family, depending on how they're designed.
Not a,
There is not 2 acres difference.
Yeah.
If I was putting a duplex up instead of a single family,
Yeah, I don't think it would fit on a regular.
you could do it on 2 acres without too much problem.
What's the trouble?
Yeah. Duplex here. There's a duplex next door to me. They're only at two or three.
How many are even going?
The biggest,
Well,
the
that's not-
biggest issue here
that's
would
just
be
it, like-
in your village area, you wouldn't be able, your lots are just too small.
this exists now, and how many 2-family applications for a building permit have we had in the last 5
So new-
years? Like,
New 2 families would be,
yeah, this isn't, it's not a problem, it's not a big problem, it's not any problem at all. We haven't had permits requested for it. The only that have been an issue that I know of.
Cost of property now, it might become a play.
Well, it could.
You never know.
As the land thins out, or like,
So we think about talking about things, but there's not really a rush to.
I don't think there's an immediate need to change something to restrict that.
Although the new law coming through. Well, we come out here, all that's not that this.
Well, that's pushing for more density, which would be more, that's what's coming from the state.
That's what I'm feeling. It's leaning more that way.
They're being more restrictive. They'll probably not fly with state regulation at some point, anyway.
It's not.
And then go against state statute at some point, I would think.
right, there's more, I mean, one of the or one of the added. What we're seeing right now for regional referrals for all the towns that are making their changes in regards to, zones that are, either zone commercial or mixed use. Towns are required by July 1st to make changes to their regulations to allow for, what they call transit oriented developments, but really what they are is a multifamily development that is no less than 2 units, no more than 9. so 2 to 9 essentially, residential units. So, and that's in any town, any zone that is already allows commercial uses or mixed development uses. So just as an example, Voluntown just sent us their changes for their regulations because they have zones that are allow for those, but I think they had already allowed multi family regulations already, so they're just putting in definitions of what these types of uses are, and they can only be permitted by what they're calling summary review, which is basically means that it can't be discretionary, so you can't do a special permit, so or a public hearing for it. It can only be permitted basically by site plan review. So you guys have site plan review currently already for most of your uses. You only have a few that are special permit. So essentially, it would just be a site plan review for a multifamily unit development.
Within our guideline, existing guidelines, or?
That's all now.
Well, I'm just saying.
Right.
That's to affect us.
Oh,
Well, you said minimum of 2, maximum of 9.
Right, 2 to 9 is what they have a
They
specific
expand it.
definition for it, so they call them like, it could be townhouses. It could be what they call cottage clusters. They have different examples of what they may be, the types of units. They specifically kind of define them in statute, but it's numbers wise, it's basically 2 to 9 units. 2 over 2s, I think they have a.
So are you saying that we're gonna be required to allow a 9?
We don't have those kind of buildings.
Is that what that means?
Well, for you guys, and this is where it gets kind of weird, is that some of it depends on how you look at, because you don't have zoning districts. You have one zoning district where everything is allowed. So it depends on how you look at it. Do you say, okay, your whole town is a zoning district, but you allow commercial everywhere? So potentially, that means, does that mean that you should be allowing these types of developments anywhere in town? And you have to create regulations to allow that? It's hard to tell because you don't necessarily, the way that your regulations are written and the way the statute reads, you'd have to ask your attorney.
I was just gonna say, who makes that decision for the town of Sterling?
What they advise, talk to your town attorney and say, have them take a look.
By July 1st?
Well, the regulations, technically, they want them adopted by July 1st. A lot of towns won't meet that deadline. They actually tried to get that extended 6 months in the latest legislative session, but I don't believe they took it up. I don't know if it was the Senate or the House that didn't take up the bill because it was
What's doing, Joe?
thrown in with a bunch. Any of those changes, text changes or anything like that for the adoption of those regulations. If you recall, the regulation that also talks about parking requirements, where you can't require parking for development that
Yeah.
parking spaces, right, off-street parking for
We
developments
don't
of
restrict any of
15 or
that.
more.
We don't restrict those things, so we don't have to submit
Right,
an update, because we don't restrict any of those. Oh, okay, I get you.
right, for the parking stuff. Or if you wanted to create, but you could still create what they call I think it's like a special parking districts. Some towns are going forward and creating special parking or defining certain zones as special parking districts. Where within these special parking districts, they can require. Applicants to do like. Show some kind of a parking study. Or at least a little bit more information in order to do things. But since you don't have any districts to define that for, it really doesn't apply to you guys.
But just the parking part.
Right.
Not the structure part. Mixed use and
Don't
commercial,
know what
we
to
allow it
enforce
everywhere.
parking restrictions, it's who would enforce that.
Right, well, it's not so much them parking, it's for the site plan. So what it is what they're, ultimately what they're saying is they're saying that zoning commissions are going out and saying, well, you can't build this development because you don't have, enough parking spaces. Or they're saying, well, if you're gonna build these 9 units, we think you need 2.5 parking spaces for every unit. So then it ends up being that you need all of this huge parking lot space. And suddenly you have to cut down the amount of units you have. So commissions are using it to reduce the amount of density. But really, they're just increasing the amount of parking. As a way of.
Units.
Right,
Like,
cutting down
how many
units, that type of thing.
In my career, I have been driven by how many units and how many square feet of, let's say, office space or retail space can we get based on how many parking spaces we can get.
Right,
And you size the building according to how many parking spaces. This has been my whole career, and now out the window. Gone.
it's a bigger,
It's crazy, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
yeah, it's a bigger issue in the more urban probably areas where parking is
Yeah,
a more.
yeah, or you have downtown areas where
Yeah.
there's just no parking. And if the developers aren't required to have off-street parking, where are the shoppers, the consumers, the patrons, where are they going to park? And now they're saying, nope, don't need off-street parking, find a spot on the street, it's gonna lead to more and more congestion. And
Force everybody to walk.
but it doesn't affect us, so we're.
That's
we're
that's
getting
part
our-
of what they're trying to do is to make everything more. Transit and
Right,
pedestrian oriented, so it's kind of more geared toward those places that are more.
okay, back on track. Okay, so let's see, where were we? We're talking about, we're gonna go back to. Yeah, 4.03, because where we put all of this was. Going back to 4.01. But that's basically writing a new regulation, so. I think we decided that that's just gonna have to lie as it is, and it's not a problem, and it's not a big permit application. Segment. I don't know that anything needs to be done with that at this time to address that specifically, but it could be considered a loophole, but. Apparently no one's trying to go through it, so. So I think we're back to just cleaning up 4.03.
And the proposal is to have the text the way it should have. So
I think that is option A.
that's option A. Okay.
And if we want to work on option B, I think that's where we are now. I think this makes a lot of sense. And I think if there's any change required, it would be just to double check and make sure that we're using the terms that we want to add definitions for.
Okay.
And make sure that those are incorporated. I haven't vetted it for that yet, but that will do that in between meetings. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, okay. So my,
Because that's a good point, like you said, use the same verbiage and continue it throughout.
so on the non-conforming lot one, the 503, we kind of define what that is, minimum area and so that area, and we change text so it matches the other documents. But we don't have something like that in the, one above, non-conforming buildings and structures.
Right, section A, this is where this whole started, this whole thing started was 5.02A.
Non-conforming structure.
The structure may not be expanded or enlarged in such a way as to increase the area, extent, or amount of non-conformity, and the structure may not be expanded or extended vertically or horizontally within the required setback area.
So with that,
It reads like you can't do anything.
but with that, when you're talking about non-conforming, it means that you have a building that does not follow, the road setbacks or the side setbacks.
Right, so
Or it's too high.
right, so that we need to explain that if the building is non-conforming because it infringes on the front setback, that doesn't mean it can't expand out back.
Right.
And this says you can't expand it at all, which isn't the intent. So I think
So-
that's where we need to.
So if you had a building that was, I don't know, what's our setback? Our front setback is residential 50 feet, so we're 40 feet back. Right, and we wanna go, so it's not conforming. So we have plenty of room on the sides, and the person wants to go, I don't know, 20 feet to the left or right. Would that,
They have to go 10 feet back, so they're within, so they're outside of 50 feet.
does that make it more non-conforming, cause they're already
Yes.
40 feet?
Yeah.
They're already there, okay,
make it more.
Right, there will be more non-conformance in the front.
well, they
setback.
didn't make it closer to the road, they
Well,
made it the same.
When I did my addition, I keep going back to it,
Yeah,
I had to go to the left because I couldn't go any more non-conforming to the front.
okay, so.
So I was able to extend it to the left as long as I was 25 feet away from the side.
But the left side was still non-conforming to the front because it was already not conforming, because what.
But it was conformed to what was there, right? I couldn't extend past, make it more non-conforming, that's what I
You
was.
couldn't bring it to 35 feet,
Correct.
you could have 40.
Like I can't add a force now. There's no room.
But you could go sideways,
I can go sideways.
but that's only because you went with ZBA,
Yes,
so that means it was more non-conforming as far as they were concerned, when they gave them
Variance.
they, yeah, as long as they gave me the variance, as long as I didn't go any further than what was already there.
You couldn't go 5 feet more
Was it-
forward. They let you still infringe
go sideways.
Was it this section that
on
forced
the
you to go to
sideways,
the
but not
Is that what we're talking about?
force.
Right, I couldn't go in.
Versus 502A.
I was thinking that.
Front lot line. This big structure,
On the left side of the 16 feet.
okay? Here, let's just say this is, we're gonna make a generic. Just so that we're not referring to you personally.
All right, so
I don't wanna get in trouble.
that's the.
So let's say, this will be the setback line. And 50 feet,
Yep, okay,
this is 40. Existing. If you wanna do an addition, you cannot go this way, you would need to go here. This would be your addition,
Right,
10 feet back,
Without. going-
because if you went here, you'd be increasing your nonconformity, because you have more square footage in the setback.
okay, that makes sense, that's the key, more.
Give her my correct.
but I went to zoning and they approved, they gave me the variance.
CBA.
Gave me that.
CBA.
CBA.
Yep. So, which is fine.
Yeah.
So you needed the variance for it's just this little
Yes.
piece right
Because
there.
they asked me to move it back. And I wanted to continue on with it when I.
Yeah, because while your setback would still be 40 feet, you're still putting more square
More
footage
square footage
in
the non-conforming place.
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore it makes it more, okay, that makes sense,
But if you wanted to go out the back, you want to
Yeah.
do a screen porch or something,
that's fine.
even though, and your front lot is only 100 feet. Your frontage is only 100 feet, you could still go out the back. Non-conforming lot, you can go out the back.
Okay,
As long as all their setbacks are right.
What do you support?
I didn't even realize that, we're gonna read in front of us. I don't think we've ever read it.
No, yeah.
We're gonna be drawing pictures all year now.
Right, that's why you use the board, sign up to use the board.
Old school, let me technology.
So now it's understand.
So we need to transfer that, this text.
Well, I have seen road zoning regulations with small diagrams like that.
Well, not necessarily
That
that
could be
diagram, but words, because that's real clear.
Well, because it's a diagram. It could work 1,000 words, right?
It's not real clear here, so.
It takes 1,000 words to write that.
That's true.
Jim could probably do it 900 though. He's pretty good.
So is that what this is trying to say here?
That's, I believe the intent, I didn't write it, so I don't know. I mean, it's, no, probably said. I think the intent is to still allow expansion of an existing structure. Just not adding to the non-conforming, whether it's front setback, side setback, whatever. I think the intent is to allow expansion, but it doesn't sound, when you read this, it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like you can do anything.
Right,
I got nervous when I read it, I'll be honest. I mean, I could have added, but like I said, I wanted to stay with the front down.
Any non-conforming structure may be continued as a non-conforming structure. What is continued?
yeah, I don't really care. You need to keep it.
Here we go.
Yeah, I think that's all it means, then you don't have to tear it down.
We can't make you tear it down.
Yeah.
You're already non-conforming, somebody can.
However,
No, actually, with that diagram you just did, with explaining it, this actually makes sense.
Yeah, man, your text makes more sense than it did before.
Yeah. That's exactly what they're saying here.
So when someone calls with a question, sections 502.A, you just have them call me and I'll give the
His
guy.
number.
Go back to my house, was built in 2000, so it was before all this stuff. I blamed that on the zone, so they landlocked me there.
Basically what it says, you're screwed.
Yeah,
I've seen in other zoning regulations for other towns where it says, it talks about not increasing the non-conformity.
Well, we said that here, but.
Which he couldn't do,
correct.
and your remedy is to go to ZBA. So your regulations aren't gonna say, yeah, go ahead and do it,
But I didn't.
but we also don't say go to ZBA anywhere,
I've never seen DB referred to that.
but that's what your zone.
No, because I mean, technically,
They're there if they're needed, not to do the right.
right, and technically, it's supposed to be really, really hard to get a variance.
Right,
Right, because these are your regs.
right, the regulation, unless there is an undue hardship,
And it can't be financial.
then it can't be a financial hardship. They don't go so.
So were we talking about putting a non-conforming building and structure definition someplace?
Well, earlier we proposed non-conforming lot as a new definition. So we just had, there was no, there's no.
Well, isn't 5.01?
Well, it could be, I mean, that does explain what it is.
If it's not in the current regs.
But it doesn't tell you in this diagram here. Just says it's non-conforming. So I have no idea by reading this. That's what they're talking about.
Things this keep on prior to July 23rd.
I agree, when I first read it, I didn't understand it, but after they explained it, you know, it's little.
So if I read this, if you don't conform to today's regulations, you are not.
Oh, correct, yeah,
That's
that's
really all.
every zoning ordinance everywhere, yep,
That's all.
Yep.
If you couldn't build that today and meet our regulations, it's not conforming. It may have been fine 20 years ago, but now you couldn't rebuild it unless.
right, I mean, here, look at this list of.
Yeah.
You know, revisions,
Yeah.
and in some towns, this is becoming pages of revisions. It's only what today's regulation is, adopted, what today's adopted regulation.
So
If like what I did, is that considered, I didn't go any further than my,
Right,
how much I 25. non-conforming, I didn't go any further than that, I just stayed the same.
Which is,
So technically, I stayed the same.
but this part is a non-conforming part.
Technically, yeah, but I just stayed the same as what the original.
You have your front wall the same,
Gonna go by.
Huh?
your setback in Springfield was the front setback,
Yeah,
and you continued your front wall
yes.
straight across?
But I didn't go any
Yeah,
further
that-
than my non-conforming lot.
Well, you did,
But you added,
because you added square
Just that little
footage
square-
within the front setback, you added
Sure,
square
but Josh,
footage. That's increasing the non-conformity. You used to have, let's just say your house is 10 feet wide by 10 feet, you added, that's 100 square feet. And you just added a 10 foot addition, you added another 100 square feet within the setback, so you increased your non-conformity by 500%.
So that's why you had to get it.
Maybe the variance.
So we don't define what is non-conforming building area.
Well, 5.01 explains what it is, but
not really, it's Rich.
well, anything that doesn't meet.
So somebody could- Well, that could be, I could have a non-conforming lot, have a house on it, that was the house is non-conforming as well?
If your lot moves,
No, it wouldn't be.
but in Newport Island, that's the case. If your lot is non-conforming, everything's a variance. It doesn't matter.
So we're gonna have a non-conforming building, we're talking about this like setback.
for non-conforming buildings.
You could have a conforming lot,
And
regular
a
lot,
non-conforming
and a
setback.
non-conforming
Yes,
building.
yeah, they're separate
thing.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
that's not, it doesn't really. That's not really clear here, so just like the non-conforming lot thing was confusing, this non-conforming building thing is. The only reason we understand it now is because we get drawings and we've asked. I have over many meetings, lots and lots of questions from Jim. And now I understand it, but it's, there was probably an hour's worth of discussion or more over the many meetings, and it was only going to half a page of text here. So if it takes me that many questions to figure out what this means.
Okay, so we'll work on an update for 5.01. And
Or in 5.02 as well.
Oh,
Well,
no,
okay,
okay,
applicability. Yeah, so they kind of go together.
yeah,
So if 5.01 talks about applicability, 5.02 is specific to the buildings and structures, and 5.03 is specific to the lots themselves.
But if,
Define them separately.
right, but a regular person, is not gonna know what a non-conforming building is. Because that's what the non-conforming building is, diagram of it. It doesn't explain that anywhere whatsoever.
But it does give you the numbers, so you can go check your lot and see if it is conforming.
You'd never in a million years figure it out. So the way to solve it would be to go to the,
zoning enforcement officer.
yeah, they would tell you right away, but.
Right,
That's what I do.
that's correct. Yeah, I mean, that's what staff is there to help people.
So, but anyway, somebody might be planning to do something and never do it because they read this and they assume they can't do it. This is stupid confusing.
Okay, so we'll work on an update to 5.01, but we don't have to do all this tonight.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to get.
This will be, as we have time.
But we might be facing burnout.
Yeah, I think we are.
That's very great thing. And then 5.02, I think we need some adjustment there as well. That's where it started, Jim, right? Isn't that the first section you pointed out as this needs to be updated? I think it was 5.02 A and B.
Yeah, it was,
Or A maybe. I think that's what stuck, what
Yeah,
prompted
that's
this.
what works.
503 was the only there.
Yeah, Jim, I think you prompted this whole thing with 5.02 A. So we should address that.
Yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense. When I'm reading it now, it makes perfect sense.
Now that you know.
Now that I understand it.
Or say, that's not perfect.
Well, it does though.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear now that you know, when we found out this, we soon. We have no.
So maybe we'll have to ask, but once we, so that means we might not be able to make it pretty clear because we already understood.
Right. You're gonna screw it up.
Now that we get it, we can't fix it.
Hey, you gotta rewrite it.
Maybe that's what happened to the last guy.
Could be.
Right. Although the first line is confusing, it's still, any non-conforming structure may be continued as a non-conforming structure.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a reason for that.
What does that even mean?
We can't make it
That
fair.
means that the town can't get it.
Like if you have a multiple,
Well, that's what it sounds like, but I didn't think that that's.
well, no, it means you may continue it as a non-conforming structure. If you didn't have this in here, somebody could go say that house is no longer conforming. Fix it, take it
Right.
out.
You can't say, well, you have to, because you want to add on, you have to tear the whole house down and do all that.
Okay. See, now the whole thing makes sense. You don't need to change anything.
So there has to be some amount of legal speed that isn't super clear, but is required. Because there's precedent for why it's written that way and why it's written by. Or why people like Mike Visca
So you want
are
to change
famous
it,
for this stuff, because
just so it,
he understands how things can turn into loopholes when they're not written correctly, with some amount of legal speed.
so we don't, a lawyer. Or can we do that or several times?
Well, we can.
Check.
Like Lester.
Well, we can make those changes, then at the same time, and maybe what I'll do is I'll send these 2 pages out to you guys.
Is that something we've seen before? Where did it?
This is from a draft from 2012. For you guys. That never got adopted.
Oh, really? Oh, it's changes to these rules we're working on now?
No, this is in 2012. You had a whole set of regulations that were presented, and this is just the section on nonconformities. But my understanding is the whole thing got shot down because it had some proposals in it. I think it was making a drastic change from shifting to permitted uses. Well, basically, right now, you're set up so that any use lawfully permitted in the state of Connecticut is lawfully permitted in Sterling. And the way that these regulations were drafted, essentially, they were making it so that it broke the town into 2 zones, and if the use was not specifically listed in the regulations, it was not permitted. Except for, I think, the way I read it was in the residential zone, it did kind of try to expand it a little bit. But it made a lot of things by special permit and not. So my understanding is back in 2012, it kind of got squashed and put on the shelf.
Sounds like a lot of work, but as soon as, on the part of the zoning commission, but as soon as you have to have everything listed as a permitted use in the regulations, your regulations get huge.
Well, that's what
Hard
happens.
work to write all that.
So what's happened in the town conference essentially when they adopted in 2003. And what happens is every single time somebody wants to do something, they have to come in with a text amendment to the commission, have a public hearing. The commission has to listen to the text amendment. They have to decide whether they're gonna allow that use. Then they create some little zone somewhere. And that's why they currently have like 9 different zones in Pomfret, Village 1, Village 2, Village 3,
So the applicants are
Village
writing
4.
the zoning regulations.
Essentially. Well, the applicants are writing them, but it was the staff, and it was your old staff that would essentially tweak things and modify things, but they would make it so that it was very specific for that one use. In that one particular area.
Do they
So
do
that-
that so they don't bring in all the, like, the Dollar Generals, all cookie cutter type stuff?
Right, it's set up so that it's very.
Restricted.
Yes, very restrictive. But what happens is over time, you end up with, like, they have. For example, I mean, we're working on their P O C D right now, they have 3 different zones. That for all intents and purposes are identical. Except for like 2 or 3 different uses. That aren't that different. But yet there's 3 different zones in the regulations for them. And they're kind of scattered all over the place, so. But this 2 pages here, it's a little more. You know, I wouldn't recommend, if I send it out, you guys can take a look at it. It has some paragraphs that are a little more explanatory, that may be beneficial to add. I wouldn't recommend adding all of them, but there may be some within there
Yeah.
that could be useful.
Or help to clarify what.
Right.
Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs under non-conforming uses. And then non-conforming building construction, 1, 2. It's a 3 paragraphs there, yeah, non-conforming uses. Yeah, there's 0, so, and then there's non-conforming buildings and structures. So there's quite a bit to look at, a fair amount to look at there. Yeah, if they
Well,
do,
if you're gonna start doing conforming.
I didn't read, it, so. Makes sense.
Right, so the non-conforming uses part for you guys right now, because you don't have separate districts, it's probably not as. Applicable, but there may be some uses, like, for example, because you do have. A few special permit uses. But like currently. I can't come up with some examples, but like, the. Mobile homes, I guess technically would be a non-conforming use. Because they're not technically allowed. In town. But, there may be some other examples, so you may not need to have all of that in there for a non-conforming use.
But if we're amending the section, let's do it right. Let's do it thorough. Yeah, let's do thorough, so.
But I can make all the changes that we've already talked about, at least so that you can see those laid out.
That'll be a good starting point. Okay, do we want to move on?
Yes.
Oh, we were going so fast here.
The wall.
You good for now? Yeah, we'll come back, with some updates and maybe we can come up with some ideas for 5.1, 2, and section 4. Then we'll do that stuff as well, so we can get this moving along. Okay. So we went from other business number 1 straight through to number 2, all in one shot. We pretty much did it all together. So, now we're on 9B, solar regulations. I don't know that we need to do anything at this time. Or.
No, but I just passed out you guys that stuff on the.
Yeah, there's a project proposed. There's nothing that we would do that would apply to that project.
That was the only question I had for you guys, is I know you have a public hearing coming up in June.
They do, Husky does.
Right, Husky does.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if the town, was formally writing anything or if the commission was looking to submit anything to
Oh,
the Board of Selectmen to include,
I think somebody's already doing that.
yeah, okay.
But no, if I can. It's at the Board of Selectmen meeting. There was some confusion, which will be addressed with the next Board of Selectmen meeting, but. One of the selectmen wrote a letter to the siting council. With the understanding that. The Board of Selectmen would all sign it. Yeah, opposing it because of environmental reasons from pools and spadefoot frog and there were other things in there. The letter was written, it was sent on town letterhead and signed by one of the select by Patricia Massey. And the other two selectmen would not sign it. They wanted to remain neutral. So it did go to the siting council. They noted that it was received. It's probably their standard response. Thanks for your letter. We'll add it to the file. That's the extent of. Okay. So there's, to my knowledge, there's no intention of addressing it further in an official capacity unless another commission wants to try and fight it, and citizens are trying to.
So I'm not implying that it would be fighting,
Not
per se,
fighting, but
but even just
opposing.
expressing any kind of a concern or something, because it doesn't necessarily, right, like something for consideration or, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a,
Opposition letter.
right, a letter of opposition. It's
It
a
was-
public hearing.
Right.
So the intent of a public hearing is just to submit, testimony of,
Concerns.
right, a list of
Or-
concerns or anything like that,
List
like.
of, reasons why we think it's
Right.
a great idea.
So it wouldn't necessarily, without saying that's, just as an example, the commission, if the commission so wanted to, without saying that they were either for or against the project, they could be looking at their, POCD or something and saying that they found that it was maybe, consistent with certain things or something like that, or that our POCD has certain goals and objectives that we just would like to bring to the attention of the blah, 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 that type of thing, just to put certain things on the record or whatever, should they choose to do so. It's not necessarily that you're, just to make both the developer and the siting council aware of what priorities the town or the individual boards might have in
That's a good word.
the development. It's not necessarily saying that we're opposed to the project, and it's just that, hey, in considering the project, these are things that are important to us.
And
Right, so-
there were statements about that as well. How are you going to force a cleanup at the end of 20 years? Traffic coming into the town walls, how are you gonna maintain land? Are there environmental concerns?
Right, well, we could look at these parcels, kind of find and. And see if it's in one of our. Preservation corridors and see if those parcels. That are proposed exist within that conservation priority, do they fall within that category? That would be a example of something that we could. Submit a letter stating that, within our P O C D, this is.
Do you remember
Land
when
and
solar
land.
panels were installed or solar ones? Just a small amount. I think the main reason for Sterling is because the wire going down to the trail.
The wire going down to the trail and probably on Sterling Road. Should get you closer to that.
But I thought all this mostly solar panels.
Yeah. 9 parcels generally located. This doesn't have it, but the majority of the solar panels themselves are. In place. How large?
So the question would be, without getting into too much minutia at the very moment, does anyone have any interest in putting some sort of letter together and finding some examples of things that we'll do? Just noting that it wouldn't be any type of personal concern. I don't like solar panels, they look ugly, or there's a question on from my house. It would be simply, looking at doing some research within our regulation and saying that, yeah.
Yeah, I would think you don't wanna sound like you're protesting.
Right,
Reasonable.
because anyone here can submit a personal letter with their name, not stating that you're a commission member, and say anything you want personal. That's the place for that. As a commission submitting a letter, we would want to stick to items that are in the regulations.
So I went to the town meeting and that.
I missed that.
And the reason they're here is because the state of Connecticut put a request for a proposal for somebody to build them. And so the, they were one of the people that submitted a proposal and the state accepted their proposal. It's not like this company is like a gravel pit and they're selling it.
Yeah.
They're here because they want a contract from the state.
Yeah.
And the reason it's here and what they're doing is, I don't think it's the state of Maine, the state of Connecticut, Massachusetts. I don't know if New York or Rhode Island are involved. Each of those states, what they're doing is making their power company purchase power from the solar panels at a certain kilowatt hour rate, 20 years. So of those solar panels, I think 25% of the power goes to Connecticut power plant. They have to have contracts set up ahead of time before they build it, so that if they agree to sell the power at a certain price to those company provider, yeah. So it kind of, it's kind of backwards. It's not, it's like, yeah, I think it's somewhat part of their way to. So all our rates now fluctuate because the power companies don't own any power companies. Or our power companies. That's why our rates are so high.
Oh, deregulation. Deregulation is really an idea that.
So what this is like re-regulation, because this will be fixed in stone, how much that power is gonna cost the power company. And it's the, whatever. Can't think of the name of the thing, but whatever power, it's part of the power grid. That's why, and those, so we're issuing this contract on behalf of the, like, Massachusetts today, like, we're just, it's worth this thing. So it's coming here no matter what. And the reason it's here is because, well, it's also that, there's a giant wire underneath the railroad trail that's how the power, the power plant got to the power.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're gonna tie into that, and that's why the reason Sterling one is there, because that's the access from the solar panels to the trail. The reason it's 30 megawatts is because that's how big the wire is in the ground. That's what it can handle. And that's probably what the size of the power plant was.
Yeah, I really want to go to that meeting. I totally forgot. It was like the next day. I said, oh, I can see when that meeting.
I just happened to read the North Bulletin or town block, the town blog, everybody fire or something, I saw that. It went everything.
Okay, back to my question. Do we want to look at putting a letter together? Or do we want to do? We have to do it quickly.
I'm too busy. Anyway, seriously.
I have no idea what we would put in.
Well, that's the thing, like, we would have to do a bunch of research, you know, either individually, like, put it together.
It's on people's property, private property.
Well, we wouldn't be saying you can't do it, we would just be saying on behalf of the town who has prepared a plan of conservation and development as required by the state. There we found 3 contradictions with what the project is. I don't know, I'm just saying that's what the letter would be. If we were to do a letter, that's what it would be. It would be either individually reading this and saying, I found a couple of contradictions.
Okay.
And maybe we should include that in the letter. That's what it would be. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just saying, you know, if we want to do it, everyone can.
This is in June, right? Early June, the
I
meeting?
mean, we have to do it quick. Yeah, we have to be quick about it.
It is.
June 3rd, I
Hearing
think,
is
4th.
evidence test. If you wanna participate, you have to email them, contact them by June 3rd,
Yeah, so we have 2 weeks. Yeah.
and the hearing is June 4th. 2 o'clock is evidentiary, no public comment starts at 6:30.
It's a long meeting.
So if someone feels strongly and says, yeah, we should turn something, then I'll help facilitate that. If not, I'll have plenty of.
The council directs that all testimony and exhibits be pre-filed electronically with council and all parties and interviewers by May 2026. But I don't know if that includes public comment. Now,
You know, maybe we could just say if anybody's, leave us have time to read.
Yeah, if anyone reads through it, just let me know.
And if we have ideas from that, we could
This is our,
email
this
each
is
other.
our POC, plan of conservation and development.
figure something out. Probably the best way to do it. This point.
Okay, so, yeah, so let me know if anyone comes up with something that they wanna do, and then I'll reach out to everybody else. If there's something that we agree on. We're collectively a commission, not individually, so. Okay, anything else on there? All right, then we'll move on, Public Act 25-1 HB 8002. Do you have anything to talk about, Jim?
No, not really anything new. The only, they continue to work on the individual regional, regional groups, both on the, developable land or buildable land inventory, working group, as well as the, housing working group. I think there's a July deadline for them to, get some of the numbers or some of the information out to us. But we'll probably be reaching out to the towns in regards to the mapping projects anyway. And we have been working with Ty and Bond, your GIS, in getting some partial improvement stuff done. Which still is moving forward, so.
Sounds good. Audience comments? Audience has left the building. Yeah, right now. That being said, do we have a motion?
Second.
Motion to what? And adjourn?
Sure. I'll second.
15 seconds. All those in favor? All right, yeah. Thank you, everybody.